Hey everyone, good afternoon. Happy Saturday. We've got an interesting show for you today. We were just doing introductions in the green room because none of us have formally met before. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. We got two artists from Panel Punk, and want to bring them in right now and get this show on the road here. So I've got both Aaron Campbell and Scott Hepburn joining me today. How are you both doing?
Doing
Great.
good.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh no, it's my pleasure. We do these shows usually on Saturday afternoons. It's fun. We usually hopefully get a few Europeans to hang out, and as well, we'll see. We'll see what we get today. But it's a pleasure meeting both of you. Although Scott, I think I met you at a
In
Cleveland
Cleveland.
show. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
pre-pandemic at a little Cleveland show. I remember you walking around and just being one of the few like legit sort of art buyer type people. It was a pretty small turnout for a show. But I remember meeting you there. You haven't aged a day. You look exactly the
Well,
same. I've
cosmetic
gone a lot
surgery and
grayer
other
since.
things usually. Well, that was funny when you sent the photograph of you. I was like, is that really Scott Hepburn, the guy that I
Yeah,
met?
that's not I mean, that photo is from like a news article in the Toronto Star from like I think 15 years ago. It just is the biggest.
Ah.
It's the biggest pop if you Google my name, like image search my name, so it gets pulled a lot.
Mhm.
I try and send out new photos and stuff, but it seems to be the one everyone chooses.
Yeah, and I have to say that photo, you have a striking resemblance to Michael Morsi in that photo.
Oh man, but yeah, well, so I was a little, first I thought maybe it's not the guy I met in Cleveland, but now I know that it is because
Yeah, for
you got
sure.
the beard. So Aaron, we want to clear everything up though. That is not a real axe on your wall, right?
No,
We talked about that in the green room.
I would
You
love to be able to swing it around like a real axe, but I would destroy it instantaneously. No, that's the prop I made. I carved for that Barbaric cover that you guys are going to be posting up soon.
Oh, awesome!
It's made out of like insulation foam, and then the only real part of it is the handle, which is just PVC pipe, is wrapped in real leather. So, but it
looks legit.
Yeah, it is full size. I mean, that thing is like over 3 feet long and like probably 18 inches wide. So, yeah.
Yeah, as big as a door frame.
Yeah.
Exactly. So do you guys typically use reference when you're doing any work? I mean, clearly you needed it, right?
I do for sure. Yeah.
I'm not as crafty as Aaron is. Obviously, that's some like old school art class stuff that you're pulling off there. I try and pull art ref as much as I can. I think it's like one of the biggest pitfalls is to think that you can draw a building or a car or a tree from memory. Is like you're gonna get in trouble quick trying to like remember what random apartment buildings should look like and how much detail there is.
Yeah.
But I've not built a prop yet. That's maybe that's my next
Google
bit.
Street View has been a game changer.
Oh, it's amazing.
Indeed, not just to spy on who you're like mailing a piece of art to or something, but it comes in handy for art reference too. That's interesting.
I have like an old photo book of New York from the 60s I look at a lot because it has like the sort of beige gray version of New York that I think like the Marvel universe is kind of based on.
Yeah.
And it makes me a lot uglier clothing, which is fun. I pull from that quite a bit.
Yeah, and I actually hired models to work with.
Oh yeah, Jesus!
So, wow.
Yeah, I shoot in a big gym, and I've been fortunate enough to have a really close friend who's a camera operator, and he connects me with a lot of great like bona fide actors and stunt people. So like when I did Suicide Squad, all of the models for the superhero characters were stunt people in film.
Amazing.
So I have these awesome shots of them jumping on trampolines for like Hawkman and stuff, like incredible shots of these action shots.
Yeah, Alex Ross stuff.
Yeah, I'm a little. Obsessed. I'm pretty obsessive that way. I love it and I hate it at the same time. So
well, Well, but it works for you. I mean,
Yeah.
I talked with Sean Gordon Murphy a year ago, and he talked about building little models for some of the cars that he draws, right? And
Oh,
Yeah,
didn't
that would
he
know
help a lot.
about that.
can
Yeah.
turn them around and position them however he wants, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. That's why his cars look so good. I think if I had, my favorite thing is to break anatomy. I love anatomy and the details of and all that stuff, but if it could exist in reality, I would probably be disappointed in myself. Like I'd try and like push, twist, turn, exaggerate a lot. That's kind of like the fun of what what I like to put onto the page. I use a lot of reference as much as I can, but I never draw the same thing that is the reference. Like I refer to what muscle details and proportions are true, and then I try and apply that to the bigger gesture and posing that I want to do, and like sort of contort it to fit the poses I'm trying to build.
So, Aaron, I would assume, having looked at your work the last few days and the work that I have here, you kind of come from a very traditional art background. So I assume that it's a little different than that. You also, just by the fact that you say you shoot for models, that you're trying to capture a little bit more of the human side of things that are grounded in reality. I mean, is that fair to say?
My biggest influences, I mean, a lot of that came out of my college experience and how I was taught, and how kind of comic books got kind of beat out of us in the late 90s as a pathway. And so I started focusing more on traditional illustration and became very heavily influenced by like mid-century American illustrators. People like Robert Fawcett, especially, is a big influence. But and then when I started to work back into comics, it was really through Vertigo, and especially the cover art, the great cover artists of the mid-late 90s. So, Bill Sienkiewicz, Kent Williams, John J. Muth, that whole Dave McKean. And then even later, then it became people like John Paul Leone, who was a huge monumental influence, and Sean Phillips, of course. So both take a very illustrative, traditional approach to the work that they do and did. So
very, very.
Yeah.
And what about you, Scott? So you were just saying how you kind of want to push and pull and exaggerate a little bit here or there when you can.
Yeah, I think fittingly, like I come from, I went to college for animation, so I had like the opposite side of that coin. I was working in cartooning to start with, and had to find the realism and the like more traditional illustration stuff on my own after. Like anything that's like a finished image was really not part of my schooling at all. It was all about storytelling, framing. It was like much more film language based stuff, and design and elements of composition and stuff like that, which are key everywhere. But in animation, the closest we got to like a finished drawing was like life drawing or something, which I loved. I think it was like probably the most important thing I did my whole time in school. But I came from like comic books in the like late 90s had sort of already jumped the shark a bit with like the image wave now crashing, but like the artists that came in behind them in Marvel that were heavily animation influenced, like Ed McGuinness and J. Scott Campbell and Joe Madureira and these kind of guys. Those were the ones that I was like, I saw a path that I could do something fun and cool that was within sort of reach, I guess.
Interesting.
Did you do any like actual animation work before you went into
I worked as a design. I never animated anything professionally, but I was a location designer for most of my like jobs, but it was like rinky dink kind of like TV animation stuff. I'm up here in Toronto, and we've got a fairly good sized industry for animation and video, everything really. But I was a location, they called it the fun book designer. So it's like the designs that you have to give to the storyboard artist. So it was like a good entry point for like being a comic book illustrator, because I'd have to read a script and find key scenes and key shots that our initial design pack doesn't cover, like whatever episodic, they're going to a garbage dump this episode, or they're going to some weird forest or whatever. I'm the one who had to do the master shots of those to give to the storyboard artist, so he'd be able to set these new scenes somewhere, and without having to become the designer himself. So that was like a pretty fun way to, like, first of all, learn perspective and need to do actual composition and classical sort of design stuff, but also be able to analyze a story and like build apart what design needs to do to service a story.
It's interesting because I don't know if you know Shannon Denton. He has it was like a reverse thing for him. He started in comics in LA at Extreme Studios under Rob Liefeld, and he was like just spotting blacks. Yeah. It was like him and a bunch of other guys who were just spotting blacks and like kind of hating life. And they all one day decided they, on their lunch break, they walked down the street into an animation studio and all got stopped and just quit.
Amazing. Incredible. Yeah.
So, but it reminded me because you have a bunch of Deadpool stuff, and that was sort of like his butter for a while was Deadpool. And but yeah. And there are some similarities in like stylistic choices between you and Shannon. You should look at his work sometime.
Oh, probably, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I always looked at like character and design as like the thing I'm grasping for most. Like, and then as you get older, you realize the like fundamentals are what you actually need to like anchor any of those decisions. Like, no one cares. Like, I guess that's sort of, if there's a spectrum, Rob Liefeld's on one far end of it, where he's like cranked up the style to 11 and like decided not to focus on fundamental type things like perspective and anatomy and whatever. I think that's a fun choice actually, but at some point it was like more satisfying for me to like actually find a way to anchor these like sort of broader design choices in something a little bit like more real. But we'll see. I don't mind breaking all those rules too.
So when I guess I'll start with you, Scott. When you were in college, clearly you were going for animation. Was that the career path you felt you were on, or did you always have illustration in your blood?
I think I just wanted to draw, and I told my mom I wanted to draw comic books when I was like a kid. And then in the 90s, there was like the real boom of Disney animation suddenly was like in the newspaper, and like my parents knew what it was. And there was a college in a suburb of Toronto called Oakville, Sheridan College, that had a classical animation program. And there was one that like, it was them and Cal Arts were the only programs in North America that were teaching classical animation. So suddenly this little like regional art school community college that takes 100 students a year was getting thousands of applicants, and it pushed, like, through no real credit of their own, it pushed the like bar of quality students up to this like really high level. So it's within a couple of years, it felt like if I could get into that program, then I could actually be set on a career drawing of some kind. And then animation, once you're out of school, it's a lot easier to get entry-level animation jobs than it is entry-level comic book jobs. There just isn't really, you can't really make a living being like a junior comic book artist, but there are assistant cleanup design people. There's entry-level jobs in animation. So, and there's like lower tier shows to start on. So it was just a way to like build a skill set for what ended up being about 8 or 10 years to like get a portfolio strong enough to actually do, have my own career basically.
What about you, Aaron?
Well, yeah, I'm kind of similar, like in the sense of, I originally wanted to be a comic book artist. I remember, I still have this memory. Like when I was 7 years old, I was in like art class in kindergarten, and a teacher looked at my drawing and said, "Wow, that's really good. You could be an artist." And it was like this light went off in my head, and I just knew that was it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, a few years later, probably around 10, I discovered comic books, and then that was it. It was like, this is what I want to do. I want to be a comic book artist. But then I got into college, and none of my professors, except for like one or two, knew anything about comic book in the comic book industry, and everybody else were all editorial illustrators, and they just basically told us there's no viable career in comic books. You should focus on something different. And they were always pushing us towards editorial illustration, which at this point is outside of like a handful of publications is a dead art form. And so I kind of held on to that like nerdiness by focusing on fantasy illustration.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went to grad school at School of Visual Arts, and I studied under a fantasy illustrator named Donato Giancola, who's really prolific. And I started doing fantasy illustration for book covers when I got out of grad school. And I did that for like a few years. My style was never great for that career path because at that point I was doing like Renaissance style glaze painting. It would take me forever to do these paintings, and I just wasn't fast enough. And I didn't have a lot of desire to do like the big bombastic kind of D&D monster stuff. So I just kind of fell out of that, and then I fell back into comics kind of by accident. And I can tell that's when I hear it.
Well, I think it's awesome that you got to have Donato as a instructor. He is an incredible painter. I mean, I've gotten to see a lot of his work at the IX show in Pennsylvania numerous times. I've sat down and had dinner with him a few times. He's just one of the nicest guys out there, and so damn talented. I love those giant paintings that he's been doing of late the last several years. I don't know how he does it.
I mean, not just of late. Because I would go once a week to his studio, which was in his house in Brooklyn. And I don't know if you've ever seen the paintings he did for the graphic novel version of The Hobbit. He did two of them, and they're 8 foot by 4 foot. Like they're painted on a giant like maple panel, I think. And he had sold one of them, and he kept one, and that was in his living room. And it was unbelievable. It's the one, I think it was the one with Gandalf and the dwarves and the storm giants throwing stones down into the Misty Mountains when they were trying to pass through. It's incredible. And then his studio was up in this like garret. Like you had to go up a spiral staircase, and he had a big window that he would open, and he would like a pulley that he would raise and lower his paintings. like awesome. He was in like Amsterdam or something. But it was Donato that kind of taught me the process that I use now, which I translated from painting into comics. Mm-hmm. And that's lots of reference, hiring models, bringing them into a studio, proper lighting, all of that, fastidiousness, so.
Well, Donato grew up a big comic fan too. I mean, he always cites George Perez as one of his most favorite artists as a child, and it's those books and stories that inspired him to become the painter that he is today. I think that it's incredible how the influence that comics has had, whether an artist ends up being working in comics or not. It's clearly inspired so many creators out there today, and as a medium, it still probably doesn't get the due it deserves to have kind of kept traditional, non-traditional works being created all these years. Like you said, Aaron, you're still working with models. I mean, that's something I don't think any in the last 4 years of doing live stream interviews with artists, I think you're the first person to tell me that you still do that, right? I mean, I think that's wonderful. So and we can thank Donato for that. I'll have to say something to him next time I see him.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I had quite a few pearls of wisdom from Donato that changed my outlook and my ability level and the way that I approached the work. Everything. He was one of the seminal people, like influential people in my development as an artist. So yeah.
Very cool. So Kazra Gambari, who's the CEO of Comic Art Fans, by the way, he's also the #1 Modoc art collector out there. Not that he wants anybody to know that, but he did you have like a drop the mic moment when you got your opportunity to work on Modoc, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, Marvel's always been really good about giving me characters that I can lean into. But you guys can hear me all right through this thing?
Yeah.
Okay, good. But that MODOK character is like, I mean, it's limited. The funny thing is, it's like there's no posing possible. Like he can't twist. His limbs are locked on a, giant can basically, and his face is the entire front of it. But I got to the point where I was sort of like arcing that can and a little bit, so he would like contract or expand a little bit. I think we found every good pose for me to draw in those 4 issues. I think I covered it with with what's possible for me to like get out of MODOK. But it was like I was surprised how much I loved it. It was a perfect. He's not anyone I would have ever guessed would have been like the perfect lead character for me to like shine on. But I got more. I mean, maybe because of the timing of it as well, but I got more like instant like fan feedback from that than anything I've ever done.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't surprise me. I mean, I picked up a page, right?
Yeah,
Deadpool on it. And one of the funny, one of the pages that we have today is just perfect, where he's laying on his back and his legs are stuck up in the air because he really can't. It is a difficult character to do much with.
Yeah.
But
Patton and Jordan like really gave me like the funnest version of doing that. I don't know what else you would do with a 4-issue MODOK mini, but I got to do like all of the most ridiculous like Silver Age like villains and anti-heroes, and it was perfect.
Incredible. So Aaron, have you gotten to work on a character like that challenged you but made you that it was kind of a thrill to finally get to work on?
Yeah, what models would you hire to draw MODOK?
Someone with a big fat face, but Swamp Thing. That was the the big character that I really pushed for in the revival of Hellblazer, because I love Swamp Thing, and that was a challenge. And I did actually hire a model. I hired a professional dancer.
That's cool.
To be my model for Swamp Thing.
Did you build like a costume for him, like a thing for all the?
No. All that's probably the closest I've ever been to like using a model just for like kind of basic ideas.
Right.
And that is about movement and form, because the model that I used, he's kind of tall and has this like very lithe body that without any context, it's hard to tell how tall he is. And that's kind of something about Swamp Thing. He's like very tall and lanky, but just underneath all of that vegetation is this intensely ripped, Bernie Wrightson body. And this model that I've worked with in the past has that Bernie Wrightson body. And so I was like, it has to be Larry that does this. And at the end of the day, that's really all I used it for, was just kind of this suggestion of getting this motion and movement that is expressive. But I actually did do a 3D sculpt, digital 3D sculpt of Swamp Thing's head, which I used. Similar to the way that Steve Bissette, because I've seen images of the little figure that Steve Bissette sculpted when he worked on Saga. So it was kind of like a little homage to that, kind of something similar. And so that way I could have something that I could rotate and shine light on and get an idea of form and then extrapolate across the rest of the body for that. So again, another aspect of my obsessive compulsiveness. And that's actually when the hardcover for Hellblazer Dead in America comes out in February. I do a whole write-up about that, and you get to see some photo reference. You get to see, that sculpt I did of Swamp Thing's head, and I talk about my whole process for how I shoot reference and work with actors and stuff. So, but yeah, Swamp Thing. There's something about Swamp Thing. I don't know what it is that's always been a big draw to me, and it was, Saga of Swamp Thing is such a seminal work. And like it was a lot of my influence that connected our story that we told to Saga of Swamp Thing, to make that all make sense. Why Alex shows up again.
Well, we've got a lot of art that we're going to be looking at today that we'll have for sale. And before we do that, though, I know that Scott, you had mentioned that you were going to donate a portion of some of the sales today to I wasn't quite sure which charity, or if you had one in mind already related to
it'll
the
probably
fires in LA?
be Red Cross.
Red Cross.
I'm open to suggestions as well, but that seems to be sort of the most universal, safe application of immediate funds. I've got a lot of friends. I got a lot of, like, both of my co-writers on Minor Threats and MODOK, Patton and Jordan, are both Angelinos. We've been watching crazy news footage for days now. So I just wanted to try and reach out and do something. So I was going to donate $50 from every sale, every piece I sell, to Red Cross.
That's good. You know what? I'll do that too. And whatever, I do not have I'd have to look into what makes sense for that, but I'll jump on that.
Yeah. I'm not an expert on that part of it either, but that seemed to be the leading suggestion from people that I've been getting.
Well, we'll figure out a way to do something similar through CAF after the show's over as well. And I can let everybody know too, if you make any super chats during the show, we'll contribute 100% of those. Even though YouTube takes a fee on that stuff, we'll cover the fee and make sure 100% of that will go to the Red Cross or whatever charity we do decide to do that with after the show. But it was interesting because I actually had. I've been watching the news as well and been reading other artist posts and creator posts and posts from friends who knew people who had somebody who had been affected by the fires. But until last night, I actually had an email from a collector who's been on Comic Art Fans for over 15 years, lost his home and his entire collection.
Oh my God.
So all of his art is gone. And you could tell he was devastated. And the thing that got me the most was his art collection was so important. He actually went in and deleted it. He deleted every scan, and at that time he was just like, I have to walk away. I've lost everything that meant so much to me as an art collector, and I have no way to get it back either once people delete it. And he wanted to even delete his account, and I said, man, you've been on the site for a long time. We've emailed a lot, and maybe just take a moment, right? Because if he gets deleted, every comment he's ever left on artwork, which was a lot, would all go away. And I was just like, I don't want you not to exist, because of a tragedy like this. And art you can get art again, but so fortunately he did step back and said he'd wait.
That was a thing that I thought about last night. I was like, shit, I know that there are a bunch of people who bought work of mine that live in LA.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, where are they? And I'm not the only one that, obviously. So that anything that went to their collection was joining a much larger collection. How much artwork has been lost, in addition to people's entire lives. I lost my house to a fire in high school at Christmas. I know how disruptive how it completely turns your life upside down. It was like over a year before we were back in our house, and that whole year that we were gone. And it's like I made a post last night. Now imagine that, but you have hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
And how are they going? How do you rebuild an entire community at the same time, you don't. Like, I mean, where is all of that work coming from? And then, like, who are the predatory people who are going to come in and try to profit from this horrifying loss? So, yeah. And not only that, but I just started to realize, I didn't realize how many people in our industry live in LA. I mean, like, I just keep seeing posts like Rick Remender posted, like, from his door. Jason Alexander posted. You know, you have, like, I have, like, all kinds of friends I didn't even realize, like Mark Andreyko, Bill Sienkiewicz is out there. You know, all these, like, incredible creators and their lives. I mean, geez, I can't even imagine. It's awful.
Exactly. Well, I wanted to thank Mickey for doing a $50 super chat. We appreciate that. And I saw Alberto, who's also on the West Coast, said he'll donate $10 for every piece sold to whichever charity we decide on. Thank you, Alberto. We appreciate that too. And Adrian, I actually, that was one of the first things I said to them. I'm like, we could have used it for insurance reference when he deleted everything.
Yeah.
That's so I would just let everybody on CAF know that, you know, that you should never delete your CAF galleries and keep your art on there if you've done it, because it's always a reference, because you just never know, you know, when something like that might happen. And if you lost your collection, at least you have a reference point. We have a way for you to download, you know, a spreadsheet of everything that you've posted. So yeah, please never resort to that. That should be, that should never do it. But wow. So Stingray said insurance on your collection is always a good thing. But yeah, so why don't we're a half hour into this and we have about 30 pieces or a little bit more than that to look at today. So I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about while we're looking at the artwork that we're going to be showing as well. So I'll kind of give everybody the ground rules on how we do the art sales here. And one thing I just alert everybody to right now, if you're on YouTube, there is a live button or link that's kind of like over in that corner over there. Click that and that'll make you as live as everybody else in the chat, so you're as kind of up to speed and current as possible, because of buffering and all that kind of stuff. You could be 15 seconds behind everybody and wondering why somebody claimed a piece of art you wanted before you even saw it on the screen, and we always hate when that happens. So the live button is the way to go to kind of sync yourself up with everybody else and us. Let me see, I've got a couple slides I can show you with regards to the sale. So claims happen in the chat. We'll show you a slide and it will have a lot number on it. Just type the word claim and the lot number, and whoever does it first is the one who gets to claim the artwork. We will pretty much show all the slides one after another, and you'll just you can claim anything after it's been shown. So if we get through all of Aaron's work, for instance, and you know, you were kind of waiting to see all the pieces he had because his stuff is first. You know, once we hit lot 14, I think it is, if you want to go back and claim lot 2, you're more than welcome to. We'll all be paying attention to the chat and be able to kind of mark those things as claimed as they happen. So all of the art is in my hands right now. So we've got actually I had a couple different shipments come in, and I had another one the other day. So I got those 2 pages from Panel Punk and for you, Scott. And so anything that's claimed, I want you to email me after the show, bill@comicartfans.com, and we need payment within 48 hours. There are a few expensive pieces here. So if you choose, you know, if you really want a piece and time payments are a little bit better, we could work something out. Generally would not extend that past 60 days. So and so we do prefer payment early, but if there was something that you were really interested in and you needed to spread a few payments out, we would understand that. It's just after the holidays. So we'll try to accommodate as best as we can. We prefer to get Venmo or Zelle. We don't charge any fees for that, but if we have to go the PayPal route, we do charge 4% on US sales and 5.5% on international. I'll take a personal check to avoid charging anybody fees. So I'm fine with waiting on that as long as you let me know that it's in the mail on Monday. Shipping for the artwork is $30 if it's in the continental US and $65 internationally. And Canada does count as international, doesn't it, Scott?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Whenever I have to ship something there, it does cost a bit more. So that's and so the prices on the artwork you see today does not include the shipping costs as well. There you go. So there we have the ground rules laid out for everybody. But yeah, we'll go ahead and just dive into this and take a look at some stuff. Aaron, you're the one who gets to start us off.
Sure.
So we'll go ahead and now, as you may have followed, I don't know if you follow Heritage or not, but they literally just sold the first appearance to Black Cat on that Amazing Spider-Man cover,
Oh.
just over $1 million. So that was
Oh.
first appearance. Now this is
Oh.
so that's a first appearance. Now we're going to show a most recent appearance of Black Cat. It's only $400, so that is a bargain in comparison to
Giving
getting
it
that
away.
Amazing Spider-Man cover.
Yeah.
We were all very curious in the art collecting community how that piece would fare, right? You know, you just never know with a more modern character, you know, where they would wind up, you know, price wise. But $1 million, that's a little bit more than I was expecting.
That's
I was thinking. I was really thinking about $500,000 was probably, you know, just based on what I've seen, but $1 million, hey, somebody really wanted it.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. I was blown away by the sale of the issue 1 cover of Absolute Batman, which only went for 70 grand.
Oh, nice.
$1 million. Oh my God.
Good for Nick.
Yeah. The art community has, you know, has changed a great deal in the last 4 or 5 years, right? I mean, I think people are finally a lot of people are realizing the significance of the artwork. There's a nostalgic factor, of course, that plays into a lot of these pieces as well. But yeah, no, I mean, hey, it's a good time to be a creator on a you know, especially if you're working on a popular book. Absolute Batman is a perfect example of that, right? When sales are good and people are talking about it, the art sales tend to be good as well.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of an example of my commission, like con commission style that I pull out, which is like all mixed media. There's a bunch of different process in there. I use bleach and lighter fluid, like a lot of that blooming you see in the reds in her face. That's all from colored pencil and lighter fluid. The lighter fluid acts as a solvent for the wax inside the colored pencil. So, and then it flashes off and leaves no residue behind. So a couple of little techniques that I stole from Bill Sienkiewicz.
But it doesn't smell like lighter fluid. I can let everybody know that. I didn't catch a hint or a whiff of that at all.
Yeah, I have pieces still that, you know, from 6-7 years ago that I, you know, used a lot of bleach on, and the paper has not deteriorated at all. So, you know, those are fairly, because they're alkaline substances, they pretty inert. But yeah, other than that, it's full mixed media. So there's some acrylic paint in there, there's ink, there's colored pencil, there's just about everything, you know, in the kitchen sink that I throw into these pieces. So yeah, and I don't get a chance to draw Marvel characters that much, so because I've never actually done work for Marvel. So thought that would be fun, even though like I was a total Marvel zombie as a kid, like complete, like only thing before Image came along, the only thing I would read were Marvel comics. I made a couple concessions for like Gotham by Gaslight and Death in the Family, and of course the Death of Superman. I remember standing in line for. But other than that, like and then it was all about X-Men. It was all X characters. You know, I was a Wolverine absolute fanatic as a kid. So I wanted to do a Wolverine for this, but I ran out of time.
Well, we need to get you in the Marvel offices somehow then.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a Marvel zombie, yeah, maybe there's got to be, right? There's got to be an opportunity for you somewhere down the road. But so this was that piece done specifically for the show?
Yeah, I did this one, and then I think there's the Spider-Gwen. Yeah, this one I did for this, and I chose to do Spider-Gwen because I had just come back from Columbus, and I've become pretty good friends with Robbie Rodriguez, and so he was there, and we hung out a lot, and during the show, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do Spider-Gwen. That sounds like fun. And so I went down to the art supply store and I bought like all of the hottest pink paints that they had.
And it shows.
Yeah. And this is same process as the last, all mixed media. There's bleaching process. There's lots of lighter fluid process, acrylic paint, and you know, the whole 9 yards. So.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, Marcus says cool. Outrage. Yeah, we know that from Frank Cho. But you know, and one thing I just wanted to remind everybody that you both are with Panel Punk. We didn't. I should have said that when we got started here today. But I did put their logo on the slide, so it would be a good reminder for us all that I know Panel Punk just kind of got started a few, not
It's
maybe
only a year ago.
it was just like the beginning of last year, so it's not been that long, but you know,
Growing fast.
exactly. And I think I've mentioned, I've had Seeley on before, and he's a lot of fun and a very good creator, and I know some of the works that you have are related to some of his projects as well. But it's nice. I think what we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years are, there's been a few more reps pop out there that are always exposing us to artists that we might not get to see work from too often. And so I think having Panel Punk out there is a great thing. So it's panelpunk.com for anybody who isn't aware, and you can always check out other artwork that both Scott and Aaron and have for sale that are up on that website. So
and Panel Punk's entire MO is boutique. They have no intention of expanding beyond a handful of creators, and at least like at the center of the hub, Tim and Paula are kind of like everybody that they bring on board, they're close friends with. So
it's a real direct relationship. And Paula's been a proper art gallery curator for years, so she has a lot of experience just in how to manage the kind of art business, and like her standards of just like, often you might get, like, I'm sure sort of fan level people that want to become part of the professional side and maybe don't have much experience managing and like really knowing how to care for like the finances of all that stuff. And so that's a big part of what Paolo, I mean, she's a wonderful person as well, but she also is just a career art curator.
She's in Chicago. Is that where the gallery is? I think. Yeah, that's where time is. Well, good. Well, so there's the background that I should have started the show with, and now we've gotten that out of the way. But I know the link to the website is in the show description too. So for those of you who are curious, you can go over there now or after the show and check things out there. But let's see here. We'll keep going on with the artwork that we've brought tonight. So we've got lot number 3. It's by Aaron again, and this is from Harley Quinn, right? And
this is a bit of a blast from the past. This was the first DCU work I ever did for the Valentine's special back in 2014 with Jimmy Palmiotti. So it was a lot of fun because it was kind of tongue in cheek, and my first opportunity to draw Batman professionally. So, like I had to draw, the Batmobile covered in bat guano.
Was that Jimmy's idea?
That was in the script, and I remember I sent in the pages originally, and they were my editor came back and they were like, "This is great, but more shit." Just completely cover it, and I was like, "Okay." So I came up with a little process where I would use, I think they were like drops of whiteout, and then I had a can of air, and I would put a bead of whiteout on it, and then I would hit it with the little straw and like kind of guide the droppings around the contours of the Batmobile.
Perfect.
That's awesome. And I should know, I did put the sizes on there too. These are they're like 9x14 versus standard 11x17. I think these are the only 2 pages that are from the published stuff that are like that. But yeah, no, that's awesome. And I wondered what that was because I hadn't read the story. I'm like, what's wrong with the Batmobile? Now I know from the mind of Jimmy.
Yeah, it was a fun little tongue-in-cheek thing where Batman and Harley Quinn are dating, and Harley finds Batman's little black book, and I think the next page is that scene. So at first she's looking through the little black book and she's like, "Where's my name?" And so Batman pulls out his can of forget spray, and then you can see her like jumping up out of the car, and while she's outside the sunroof, he's writing her name into the little black book, and then he hands it back to her and he's like, "See, your name's in there."
Nice. Oh man, yeah, we all love Jimmy around here. He's He's almost a neighbor because he's in Tampa, but and he's on the board of Comic Card Fans too.
Oh,
So
nice.
he's always a lot of fun. But now that I know he wrote this, I mean that's because these pages were fun to look at, and now I know why, because I've read a lot of Jimmy's stuff.
And those are
That's
the
awesome.
last two I have from that story. I think it was an 8-pager. So, and yeah, everything else is gone at this point.
Yeah, and I just saw the super chat as well. Thank you, Sokolov Art, for that. You said email you. Okay, yeah, I'll make a note to shoot you an email, and I think that collector would be very happy to get a piece of art from you once they get their life. I'm sure they got a lot to work out after that, but I appreciate that, and I know I do have your email through the site. Thank you. All right, so there was lots 3 and 4 there. So let's see. We're moving into some of the fully painted pieces here that are published. So this is a West of Sundown cover.
Yeah.
And this is awesome. 10.5 by 16, priced at $1,800.
Yeah. So this is the big, not really the beginning. I guess this is the beginning of my writing partnership with Tim Seeley. So we co-wrote this book together, and I did all of the A covers. Tim did B, and then the interior artist Jim Terry did all the C covers, I believe. But this was a ton of fun. I loved working with Tim on that, and it's created basically a professional partnership between the two of us. You're gonna see us co-writing books. I can't really talk about anything right now, but you're gonna see us working together in the future on quite a bit of stuff. But this one specifically plays into quick overview of West of Sundown real quick. It's a supernatural horror Western set in northern New Mexico in 1870. It's about a vampire who has to return home after 200 years to recover her native soil, which was destroyed by a vampire hunter in New York City, who just happened to be Frankenstein's monster. We always describe the series as Hammer Horror meets Sergio Leone. So I grew up in Missouri and spent a lot of my summers down in the Ozarks. And in the Ozark region, back during the post-Civil War period, there was a group of vigilantes called Bald Knobbers, and they wore basically a rabbit-eared mask, exactly the way you see there on that cover. And in this issue, one of the characters had connections with the Bald Knobbers, and that past comes home to roost in that issue. So that's what's happening with the rabbit-eared outlaw there.
Interesting. Now I was just looking at the piece. It's mixed media, certainly, and a lot more colored pencil, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of colored pencil. It's got a base of I think I did some airbrushing on this. This may be before I got my airbrush, but there's acrylic, there's colored pencil, there's all of the black underdrawing is just ink. And then I would paint over top of that. But yeah, a lot of those cloud formations, that's a lot of colored pencil with the lighter fluid process. This was when I was starting to kind of move more towards implementing more acrylic. So this is kind of actually a bit of a transitional period in my cover art process.
Very cool. So the next lot is also from that. It's issue 8. And again, similar techniques, I assume, on this one.
Yeah. And this one, you can see that texture behind the web is all created from the bleaching process. And in order to achieve that, you use inks that are not waterproof, that are dye-based. So I use fountain pen inks. And you can get them in all kinds of colors, and you can create really interesting effects with that. This is where I was playing much more into like the classic monster movie poster theme with West of Sundown, which is something that we leaned into quite a bit for the series.
Yeah, this looks like a 60s Hammer horror movie poster or something, right? It should have some jagged font logo on this thing.
Yeah. And the first it's interesting. These were covers for the second trade or the second series, issues 6 through 10. Issues 1 through 5 I did digitally, But in the post process, the designers for Vault made them look like distressed movie posters, and so we did all of those exactly like that. I'm not sure why they didn't continue that with the second arc, but maybe because they wanted to give the painted covers more room to shine. So
Well, that makes sense. But yeah, you see it here with this one. Now that this next piece, it's just amazing to see it in person. I'm just gonna switch over to the next slide here. Yeah, because it is painted, and once you've varnished it, it's just amazing how everything just pops. I mean, this looks it is so slick. It almost doesn't look. It almost looks like a print. It is so clean, and that's what varnishing a piece does.
yeah,
I mean, it's amazing.
yeah. This is for Witcher, Cy Spurrier writing, and this was one I had told myself basically. This was toward the end of working on Hellblazer, and my deadlines were getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and I told myself, okay, no more like third-party covers. I can only do my Hellblazer covers. And then they came and they asked me, "I've got a Witcher cover," and I was like, "Well, I can't turn down Witcher." So yeah, and this one is basically outside of like a few highlights. This is all acrylic. So this is kind of really representing my kind of mature like acrylic realism style. And I only did this like a few months ago. I think maybe September, I think is when I did this cover. So it's not even out yet.
Wow. Well, it's awesome. I mean, I see a little bit of Corbin in this, and again, it's electric looking at it. I love it. Wow. Yeah, I wish people. Yeah, you can't. Nobody gets to see it like I get to see it here in the studio because I get to have it in hand. I mean, it literally. I mean, you can see. Yeah. I mean, it just shines. It's amazing. That's great, Aaron.
Thanks.
Okay, let me see here. Another painted cover.
Turtles.
Turtles. How did this happen?
Well, this happened almost as a consolation prize because I had been asked to do a cover for the Stranger Things crossover for Turtles, and it was going to be the 1 in 500 chase cover, I think. So like big deal. And last minute, I ended up getting my comps, and I opened them up, and they were not the cover I did. And so I emailed the editor, and they like, "Oh crap, we didn't tell you. Duffer Brothers canceled it the day before it went to print." And I was like, "What?" And yeah, and they said, yeah, they were very upset, and they actually had to leave the office for the day when that happened. And it was an awesome cover. I mean, it was the Turtles, and there was a Demogorgon, and it was freaking awesome. So they were like, "Don't worry, we'll get you another Turtles cover." And when Jason Aaron, when they announced his book that he was doing, they asked me if I wanted to do one of the number one covers. So this was I think the F cover for issue 1 of the new Jason Aaron run. So the one funny story I'll tell about this cover is, I sent in my sketch, and the sketch had a lot more form describing the turtles. And they came back and they were like, "This is great, but just make sure that their lower region is completely in shadow, because the Nickelodeon has a thing about like the turtles and their crotches."
And we all.
Wow. See, and I thought LucasArts was bad, but Ninja Turtles too, huh?
Yeah, so I was like, it's fine. It's less for me to paint. But yeah, I was like growing up, Turtles it existed in this weird transitional period in my youth. So I was just too old to collect the toys, but I was fanatic about the cartoon and any like Nintendo Turtles game. Like I had to have it. So like I loved the Turtles. Read the comic books some, but I still remember going to see the movie in, what was that, 1989 or late 80s, whenever it was. I remember me and all my friends doing a sleepover and going and seeing that movie, big night, like that and Batman, 1989. Those are like the two movie experiences from my youth that I vividly remember. So this was great. I love doing this. And it's kind of outside my wheelhouse. But yeah.
Alberto wants to know if you have a favorite turtle, though.
Oh, my favorite turtle was always Donatello. I was a dork. I was a total nerd. I loved history and science. So Donatello was my guy.
That makes sense. All right. Now, this one's very much a monotone piece, but dynamic in its composition. So this is from Nightwing 114, a lot priced at $2,700. So yeah, still DC focused, but this one's great. I just love the negative shapes in here, kind of defining the character a bit, and it just makes for a really dynamic cover. I mean, it would have to have like popped off the shelves because it is so vibrant.
Yeah, this was because this was for the first issue in Tom Taylor's run on Nightwing, and like I'd met him a few times, and we've become pretty friendly together. So this was a lot of fun to be able to do this, and this one really shows off, like kind of highlights the bleaching process. So all of that texture in that blue, that is from a bleach process wherein I will basically lay down a field of this fountain pen ink in this like vivid blue. And then I will take paper towels and I'll crunch them up and kind of soak them in water and then press it down so that that texture created by the crumpled up paper towel is laying against the surface. And then over top of that, I will spray bleach onto the paper towel and then use a roller to press that texture through onto the paper. And then from there, I went in and started building up the paint for Nightwing himself. And that's the rest of that is all acrylic.
And it's varnished too, right?
Yeah.
At the end. Yep. Yeah, that's what helps make it pop. And I just saw we have a claim on lot 2 from Ian. Thank you, Ian. That was the Spider-Gwen. So we appreciate that.
Nice.
Ian
Thank
Saints.
you.
Make a note of that. Thank you very much. No, these pieces don't smell. I see Marcus is like, yes, no, there's no bleach smell or anything like that on the pieces whatsoever.
Yeah, like I was saying before, that bleach and that lighter fluid, it ends up flashing off, and because it's an alkali, it doesn't have any kind of long-term negative impacts on the paper, and the smell basically disappears. I know that Bill Sienkiewicz has been asked about that, and I think his response has always been, I've been doing this process for 50 years and they still look good, and even if they start to deteriorate, I'll be long gone.
That's right. Exactly. Blame it on one of his heirs at some point, right? But you're right. I mean, his stuff is as vibrant as ever. I mean, I've seen a lot of pieces in person, that he worked on in the 80s, and yeah, I mean, they still pop to this day. All right, let me see here. Where are we going to next? Lot 10. So this is from Detective 1075. And this one is, it's you got to tell me the technique on it, because it seems like you did some kind of like overpainting to give it that white halo look, but this thing is so darn clean. I don't know how the amount of the amount of work you put into the piece. I would expect to see thumbprints and smudges all over this thing, and it's clean as can be. I don't know how you do it.
It's so the blooming, that white is airbrush, and underneath that, this is where I'm getting into my like Dave McKean kind of influence. So there's photographic process that is manipulated digitally and then like layered and then printed onto a page, which then I build up further with paint and ink. This is a lot of back and forth where I would just take basically scraps of paper and do a lot of just kind of random abstract texture, and then take my DSLR camera and photograph those weird textural forms from odd angles to get kind of interesting depth of field effects, and then start to layer those pieces together, and then end up with something that I can then work over and bring out more form in the final. So like Barbados, like he was drawn in inks, over top of these textural elements that I had built up. And the same thing with like the little elements of Bruce, being kind of covered in these tissuey bat forms.
Oh, very cool. That explains it. It is a vibrant page, Ilya. I would agree. Now, this next piece, we were looking at the model on the back wall, right? This is the barbaric axe, and there's the model that you use that's hanging over the door behind you.
Yeah, and this one is I think there's some bleach in there. There's acrylic and colored pencil. Those would be the main mediums that I was using. A lot of that really intense red comes from the colored pencil. Because when you hit that red, I don't know what it is about red colored pen, like Prismacolor, but it's the one that reacts the most intensely to the lighter fluid process. Because once you start to blend that, you hit it with the lighter fluid, and then you start to blend it with your fingers, it just boom, that pigment just explodes off the page.
No, it is amazing, and it is as vibrant as it appears there. When I'm looking at the original in front of me, it's crazy how you're able to achieve that with these pieces. Wow. And when you photographed the model on this one, did you have him holding the axe?
Yeah.
Good.
He didn't have any blood on him, though. That was all. That all had to come out of my head. So
all right. Stingray says the Barbarics series is a very fun one. So
yeah, it's great.
All right, let me see here. A lot. Oh, okay. We have a couple of HELLBLAZER pages now. So Dead in America, issue 11, page 3. And some people were talking earlier. It's the series that people have been very excited about and happy to have you working at it. So how have you enjoyed your time on HELLBLAZER?
It's the most significant period of my career to date, and it's what I consider to be my most important work, and probably will be what I'm primarily known for the rest of my life. There's something about HELLBLAZER. It speaks directly to my sensibilities on all levels, to the point where, when I was wrapping up this last issue, it was very emotionally draining and difficult. Like I was having pretty emotional nights in the studio where I would realize this part of the process is the last time I'm going to do this part of the process, and get very verklempt, basically. And John, it was almost like John became like a friend. I got so close to that character through working on this book, to the point where I actually think that I've had my own in real life encounter with John.
Oh wow.
A la Alan Moore and Brian Azzarello. It happened early December, just a month ago. This guy came in. I was at this Italian restaurant at the bar with my wife and her sister-in-law for her birthday. And this guy came and sat down next to me. And later that night, I was reflecting on that encounter and told my wife, I was like, I think that was my John experience. That. I mean, I'm not the kind of person to think I actually there was a manifestation of a fictional character in real life, but there was something about that encounter that, similar to the way that Alan Moore describes it, it was him. It was absolutely him, and it was at this moment where I needed it most. And it was so weird. I mean, this guy was from London. He just talked like John. He looked like John. He acted like John. I mean, everything. I tried to tell him who I was and what I worked on, and every time I got closer, he would get super cagey and be like, "No, mate, I don't have time. I gotta get going, actually." And I was like, "I gotta have a cigarette," and then, like, he left. It was so weird, and I can't get it out of my head. Yeah.
Did you get his number?
Nope, I never got
his email address or anything. No,
never got his name. never got any real information. Yeah, he would get super cagey anytime I tried to delve deeper into who he was.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, and then so this, and both of these pages are from the last issue of the series.
Right, from 11. Yep.
Yeah, this is where Swamp Thing takes over the dreaming. That's Swamp Thing as Dream's Castle there. Yeah. And so, I mean, ultimately, it was an incredible honor to be able to draw John and Dream, and not only just Dream, but Dream presenting himself to John as Morpheus, which just doesn't happen in comics anymore. And like that Morpheus shows up. He had a couple brief flashback appearances in the Dreaming that Cy wrote. And then Swamp Thing, all three of these characters together. It's never happened before. Like this may be the only, because this may be the page where these three characters are on page together. It might be the only time it's ever happened in comics history. I can't remember if Swamp Thing and Dream and John were together at any other. I don't think so. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this page right here is the only time in the history of comics that those three characters have been on page together.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, scans never do stuff like this justice, right? When there's just so much work involved in them. But yeah, this is beautiful. I love the color and the tree.
Thanks,
as well. Yeah, it's just it's wonderful.
And
man,
these are all mixed media pieces too. So.
And the board's a little bit heavier. I mean, I guess that's DC board. Maybe that's their stuff is.
No, so I print that on the.
You do? Okay.
Yeah. So I actually made that because when you get a page template from DC nowadays, it doesn't have any of that information on it. It's just a file with guidelines on it. It's just blank. So I created that based on, like images of old DC paper that I've seen in the past. So I printed out onto a really nice Arches 156-pound hot press watercolor paper. And it can take the abuse that I throw at it really well without deteriorating.
Well, that makes sense then, because I've not handled DC board that was this heavy. I mean, because traditionally their boards are a little bit larger than the Marvel boards, but okay. So now I should have asked that first.
Yeah, and that's the paper I work on for pretty much everything. Is that 156, specifically 156-pound Arches hot press watercolor paper.
All right, well, those are the only two Hellblazer pages we've got, and the last piece of Aaron's that we're going to look at here is the cover to Minor Arcana number 5.
Yeah,
was this one. It's on 11x17, and same thing, techniques on this one.
Yeah, this is all mixed media. There's acrylic, there's bleach, there's ink, there's everything in this one. So, and this one, because Minor Arcana, for anybody who's been reading it, is very much uses the tarot imagery, in its storytelling and its themes. So I have for me, the Hangman card is significant to me. I did a painting, out of grad school of the Hangman piece, which is very personal, and it was all Renaissance style glaze painting. And then my personal business, I named Hanged Man Media. And so when I got the opportunity to do this, I was like, well, I have to do the Hangman card, and it has to be inverted. So because the Hangman card itself, whenever it's drawn normal, which is, hanging downwards, it signifies, it signifies, a change in a person's life for the worse. And usually that change has been self-inflicted. Like you are the one who causes your own worst enemy kind of thing. Whereas if it's inverted, it's about sort of a change that's coming that signifies some kind of enlightenment. And that is kind of what's happening in the series at this point. The main character is starting to kind of accept who she is and make this shift. So it was a lot of fun. And anything, I think this is my first cover for Jeff Lemire book, and I've always wanted to do something with Jeff. So even if it's a cover, I'll take it.
Well, it's beautiful, and it's and again, as vibrant as the other pieces that we've looked at too in person. So not enhanced in the scans whatsoever. So that one was 2000, and I did see Stingray claimed the prior piece. That was lot 13. That was the Hellblazer.
Nice.
What was it? Page 16.
Yeah.
So, congrats to Newell on that one. And so Newell, I maybe I can hand deliver that to you at OAX. I know he's going to be there in a couple weeks, so I can do that and save on shipping. We can do free shipping here when I'm delivering stuff at the show. So happy to do that. Well, those are great, Aaron. So those are the 14 that we have from Aaron. So then Scott, it's your turn now.
Great.
So we've got a variety of pieces.
I'm curious to see what order you put them in.
Well, I kept them in the order that
okay.
I think the last order that I got from McLaughlin, just because but I did try to get things at least sequentially, because it wasn't an order issue wise. I think I messed up once, but at the very least, it's at least kind of sticks to that a little bit. But all right, so Stingray says yes, please. We will deliver that at OAX. Perfect. Happy to do that. All right, so let's see. We're lot 15 for you, Scott. This is from Deadpool, and I got these from Paulo. I think just the same day your stuff came in, actually. So this is from issue 1, page 2, priced at $325. Really nice, image of Deadpool there at the bottom, but a great composition on this one.
Yeah, it was a fun. This was a fun sequence. It was the first issue. Me and Nick Klein were trading arcs on Scotty Young's Deadpool run. We were doing 3 issues a piece, but they wanted both of us in issue 1. So I had this backup story that was like 9 pages of Deadpool misremembering his origin story and using like famous origin stories for like Captain America or the Hulk or Batman or Superman or whatever. So that was just a lot of fun. It was just like page after page of doing, him thinking he's Spider-Man or something.
Very nice. Now, curious on a page like this, how much time do you think you spend on a single page?
Well, hopefully no more than a day and a half to 2 days. This is a pretty forgiving. I mean, other than the like crazy machinery sort of thing at the top, a big character pose with like a bunch of fun smoke. That I can do that pretty quick. So I might have done this in a day.
It's very nice. Yeah, I get you. A day and a half. We as art collectors don't think about it. I think in terms of the amount of time that goes into a piece, but yeah, a day and a half is a bit sobering for those of us who aren't professional comic book artists. But very nice.
I wonder often if I could make myself stay in pure focus, like what the literal pen on the page amount of time is. But there's like stopping, erasing, changing something, reconsidering something. There's like thinking time in that day as well. So it's hard to tell exactly how much it would take to just put the lines on the page. Right. Probably half of that, but then I second guess things and I change a panel and I erase something and draw it back and all of that.
Now, I just kind of realized something with this too. So on these, on all of your pages, I mean, that's not on a regular Marvel board, right? You sent them.
Yeah, Marvel, I mean, I guess if you ask for it, I think Marvel will send you boards, but I find the Strathmore Bristol Vellum just more consistent. It's
Okay.
stronger, has a little more tooth on the, for like the kind of inking I do. I like to have be kind of brushy and messy and like a lot of splattery type stuff. And if it's too glossy, I don't know. I find it irritating to like when the pen glides too smooth and too quick. But also, it's just I can get that paper anytime I want, so I just don't want like having to rely on an outside source to make sure they get me my pages on time.
I just didn't know they made 11 by 17
Yeah.
Strathmore Bristol tablets like that. So I was just surprised when I opened it up. But that makes a lot of sense. So because these pages definitely feel a bit weightier than the standard Marvel board. And like you were saying, it has more of a tooth to it. And there's a reason why
you can
like
get,
John
you can
Romita
get that
Sr. drew on
same
vellum, right?
Yeah, I like the vellum. You can get it in smooth, is the alternate surface plating, but I find it a little glossy, kind of waxy feeling.
Sure. Well, we have another Deadpool page here too, and it's from same issue, page 3 on this one.
This is him misremembering his origin as like a Spider-Man situation.
Yeah, when I was looking at these, I was like, I really need to read the story to understand the context. But now I do.
Just realizing it's a Scotty Young script, I think, would clarify some things.
Right. What year did this one come out?
That's a good question. 5 or 6. I mean, it's been a minute now. I did this, and then I did Cosmic Ghost Rider, and then I did the MODOK miniseries, and then I started the Minor Threats book I'm on now. So I would say 6, maybe.
Okay. Very nice. Well, this one's $300, lot 16, and then lot 17 is actually a Deadpool cover, issue 11.
The only cover I've got left from that run. I got to design our sort of a Batman archetype for it to. So we find out at the end of that little short story that the actual memory he's trying to pull together is that he assassinated a rich couple in an alleyway, but there was a little kid there, and he accidentally created a Batman type vigilante, and then that little kid is now grown up and is this sort of like Dark Knight Returns type Batman, like a brutal sort of spiky Batman, a bit of like an absolute Batman sort of character. And he pulled Deadpool's bones out of his body. So that's what this cover is. He's wearing Deadpool like a cape because he's torn all his bones out.
This just keeps getting better and better, doesn't it, Eric?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this is fantastic. See, I'm looking at the image earlier, and I'm trying to figure out what's going on because I couldn't figure out. I wasn't able to download the issue and read it, but I love it. I love it all the more now. And Rich Donnelly has claimed this one, so congrats, Rich. Thank you.
Oh, amazing! Thanks.
I like how you work your signature into these too.
I try if it's at all logical to just carve my name into the side of a building somewhere or onto, the blood of something drips out, spills Hepburn on the floor sometimes, something like that.
I love it. Let's see. So this is a little change of pace then from that. This is from Hack Slash Body Bags issue 2 cover.
Speaking of Tim.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is fun. I mean, I think Tim's work has been, it's just enjoyable. There's a love for that the genre, and then the artwork that's come out of it is all fun too. I mean, I can tell that I think everybody who's worked on it really enjoys the characters and the storylines.
And to get to draw Hack and Slash, like Jason Pearson, I never got to meet him when he was doing the book, but that was sort of like an early aughts indie comic success story that I remember being like kind of envious of him being able to like just build this kind of like very recognizable character and make his own world out of it. And I always felt like, man, I could draw that character. That's right up my alley. So I'm glad Tim thought of me when these covers came up.
Yeah, no, this is fun. And $1,500 on this one for lot 18 on 11 by 17. I saw Rich wants to pick up his art at OAX as well. So you got it, Rich. I will deliver it to you there. Not a problem at all. Let's see here, lot 19.
Yeah,
So we have a few MODOK pages. So this is from issue 1, and it's priced at $400 and just fun. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, when I saw it, yeah, I love the page I got to pick up when I saw you in Cleveland. But this had, again, we talked about it already, but clearly a lot of fun on this one. It's a tough character to kind of give life to, but
This
a
was
pretty
like
good job.
early in the first issue, so I wanted this page in particular. I wanted to be like, I just want as big a character headshot of this guy as possible. And the funny thing is, with him, a headshot is a full body shot, basically. So I just like, I laid out the page, and then I remember like at some point pushing the panels smaller above and below him just to give it, I was almost tempted to do like a half page splash of just his giant head there.
Oh, it's great. I love this one, and we have a DPS that's coming up too that has a lot of fun images in it as well. So
Yeah,
this
that
one's
one.
yeah, exactly. No, that one, yeah, I have some questions about that when we get to it. So this one's lot 19, $400, page 6 to issue 1, and then let's see, I think this next one was from issue 2. Yeah, this is one that
Yeah.
I just every time I had to go back to this one just a couple times because it's just so funny. Him lying on his back, and like you said, his legs don't move.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is just great. I mean, the layout of the page is fun, but that first panel just it catches you every time you look at it.
Thanks, man. That's Tony Stark,
Mhm.
basically acting like his like doctor to try and like figure out what's going. MODOK has realized that his like team has turned on him, and that he's haywiring. He's having these mental glitches and hallucinations, and so he goes to Tony Stark, thinking that's the only person who had like qualified to be able to like diagnose me. And there's sort of like a fun issue of them being like a little team up, breaking into this villains convention, uh, which is like such a Patton and Jordan storytelling device to do, just to give me like a million characters to draw in the background.
Well, no, I love this one. This is great.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man.
So the DPS is next here. Let me show that one off.
Oh, yeah, good.
I made a couple slides just so we can show more because this one doesn't really get the full effect. But so this is lot 21, $1,200. So it's 22 by 17 because it is from issue 4, pages 4 and 5. But just you've crammed a lot into this. You've got Hulk, the Thing, Cap.
It's his whole life.
It's his
Like
whole life. I mean, right.
It's him like in a full like 11 by 17 height MODOK head, but all of that there's sort of layers. If you look at it, there's there's wires that are creating a pattern of panels, and those are his memories of his father at the top. It goes sort of chronologically top to bottom, and then him as like an idiot janitor, and then him getting into AIM and being experimented on and turned into MODOK. And then underneath that, there's sort of a honeycomb grid of memories of facing off against Marvel Universe character like heroes, and then sort of even below that, there's 3 kind of like hatched images of what are these deep memory of like a family that he can't quite remember ever having, which are from the MODOK animated series that Patton and Jordan did.
Mm-hmm.
So there's it's a lot going on here.
Well, it's very impressive in person.
Thanks, man.
It's and so fun. And I like the different inking techniques in there too. You have those 3 really dark panels that they're just very moody in comparison to the other panels around it, which have some Kirby crackle and other energy. And like you said, the wires are drawn in a fun way. But then I keep getting drawn to those 3 panels that are darker, just because they have like a classic feel to them.
Thanks. Yeah, this took more than a day and a half.
If it took 3 days, we wouldn't fault you.
Yeah, I think that's probably at least that. Yeah.
All right. Well, this is lot 21. So lot 22, we've got a couple of.
This is
actually,
an older one.
This one here.
Yeah, this Teen Titans one is. This is at least 10 years old. Maybe a little more. I forget what year I did. I did 2 issues of Teen Titans, and I think this is from the first of those 2.
All right,
But
so
it's
this was from 5.
Wonder Girl.
And issue 5, page 9, and it's priced
Yeah.
at $200. And I think we have another page from this one as well. But so this is, well, okay. So point of reference though. So this is 11-ish years ago. What was the first published work you did, and what year was that? Do you remember?
Well, I had like a weird sort of introduction, and like because I started in animation, I had sort of a group of friends, and they had connections with. There's a small publisher up here in Canada in Toronto called Udon, and they were sort of like a manga studio. The editor chief guy, Eric Coe, he's from Hong Kong, and he knew a lot of artists from Hong Kong. And it was sort of post Dreamwave, if you guys remember Pat Lee's the Dreamwave with the Transformers comics way back. And that studio kind of fell apart, but there was a handful of artists from there that just kind of needed someone to help them organize their work and like talk to editors and get jobs and stuff like that. And it kind of turned into like a design studio almost. Like we would get odd jobs doing like just piles of illustration for like monster manuals for RPG things. And I wasn't good enough to do, get comic book work on my own, but I could do backgrounds for other artists. Like we sort of treated it more like an animation studio. There was a lot of like 2 or 3 of like I was doing Alvin Lee's backgrounds on some Deadpool stuff and Agent X stuff. And then me and Joe Vreens got this book called Sentinel for Marvel during the Tsunami line, which is when Runaways started. And that was my first real comic book work. But I was doing page layouts and backgrounds. Like we were treating it sort of like animation style. And then it really like piecemealed my way forward until I finally got work with Dark Horse doing Knights of the Old Republic. That was like the first gig I got on like my own merits. I don't know when that was, like 2008, I think 2007. Okay.
So that's about 18 years ago, roughly.
Yeah.
So you'd been in the business a little bit when you did the Teen Titans stuff here.
Oh yeah. This had been, I had already done a handful of things, and I did a mini series with Dark Horse called Orchid, which was like another like I've had sort of a run of celebrity writing teams. It was Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine was the writer, and me and him had created this, like he had like a story, and I sort of helped turn it into a comic book of this sort of post-apocalyptic slave uprising kind of epic. And that was like, since that everything was pretty shaky until I did that book, and then from leaving that book, I had a skill set solid enough that I'd been working steady since then. Like the DC started giving me things right after that, and I think this is in that run of DC stuff I did. I had done like an issue of Batman Superman. I did a mini series called Rogue Rebellion during the Forever Evil event. Mm-hmm. Francis I was sharing a studio. There's a studio up here in Toronto called the Raid Studio. And at the time, Francis Manipool was sitting right behind me, and he was on his Flash run then. And so he sort of suggested me to do this spin-off miniseries that was focusing on the Flash villains, the rogues. And I think that this was soon after that, if I'm remembering clearly.
Okay.
But this is a fun page. I can, Robin and Raven together is always going to be fun to draw.
Definitely. So this one's $200, lot 23, page 11 from Teen Titans 5. And yeah, we as comic book fans, some people like that version of Raven and other ones don't. It's
Oh,
what it is, right? At the end of the
Yeah.
day. Let me see here. What is it? Oh, that's right. We got a couple Drax pages too. So this one's lot
Nice.
24 this is from issue 9, page 3, and it's priced at $200. Fun. I like the way you draw Drax. I mean, we get so used to what he, the movie, right? And the way you want to picture him. But this is the way, from the comics, the way I want to see Drax. And
yeah, I was never gonna draw all those like crazy ornate tattoos that he has in the movie. That's like just torture. And I kind of wanted to have a version of him. He's not been that prominent in the comic books ever. So this is the version that got reinvented, sort of the God of War version of Drax that got reinvented a few years before I did them. But I wanted to have a version of him that when I drew it, people would know it was me that drew it. And so I sort of I gave him a specific kind of anatomy and posture, and kind of squared up his lats and his delts a lot. So he had a specific silhouette all the time. His head is always kind of buried in his chest. But this was a great book. I got to draw so many like weird, cosmic Marvel stuff. That's Torgo, the indestructible android, and Pip the Troll is sort of down there, small in panel 5. He was covered in nicotine patches the whole time because we can't draw him smoking anymore. It was great. Fin Fang Foom. This is like a Fin Fang Foom dragon baby that hatches that Drax is kind of stuck with.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Now
ever since basically this 11-issue run on Drax that I did kind of set me up pretty steadily at Marvel for the next 8 years or so.
Same editorial teams that you kind of bounce around, or is that something
No,
that
it's always different, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's not that big of an editorial office. Like,
Okay.
There's really only 8 or 10 like lead editors. There's another probably dozen or so of their assistants and people coming up, but it's really not that big of an office.
Okay.
But I've worked for most. I always lose track of who was on who, but I've worked with most of them, I think.
Cool. Well, we have one other Drax page here, and this one wasn't inked. So
there was a couple issues where they were like trying to get us, like, I was always so close to deadline. They were trying to like buy me some time, and then for like 2 issues, they tried like giving me an inker, which is a fair idea, but I hated it so much, and I never really pencil clean. Like, it didn't really help me. I never pencil so clean that someone else could ink it anyway. Like, that's not how I work. So it didn't feel like, it just felt like I'm losing half my paycheck for no reason. But
Right.
I understand what they were trying to do. It just is, I'm not a penciler. But there is a couple issues where the originals are just pencils, and the inker worked digitally, I think.
Huh. So you were able to kind of argue the point that it's better off with me inking my own work because it really didn't save you any time.
I just stopped giving them pencils.
Smart move.
I just started sending them inks again.
No, that makes perfect sense. So this one's lot 25, 250, pencils only, and there's even like a bonus sketch on the back, I think. One of those ones
Is
where
there
you
really?
said yeah, believe it or not. Let's see.
I often restart a page by just turning the paper over.
Oh, well, maybe that's what you did, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He's in a thin
it was just kind of clunky, so I just started over.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. Lot 26 is our next one, and these are interesting. I think we have 2 of these, and it's kind of might be better if I show the piece first, and then I'll have you talk about it. So let me my camera go large here so we can show. So this is on. It's 17 inches tall, and I think it's. I can't see the slide, but I
It's a
think it's about,
board. It's a traditional board just cut in half
right.
vertically.
Okay.
So it was for the Marvel Unlimited app,
Mhm.
and it was maybe 5 years ago now, but it was, or maybe no, it was mid-pandemic, I think. And they were doing a bunch of they were relaunching Marvel Unlimited, and they had a bunch of us, like of their sort of mainstream published art teams, do original content specific for the app for like, so it's a scrolling comic, like it's a vertical scrolling comic. So all of the storytelling has to happen from top to bottom, which was a challenge, but I soon realized just try and turn as much as I can into like vertical pans to like get as big a pose and sort of scenes in as I could, because my instinct is to do sort of like cinematic, like wide and short, but obviously that means I'm drawing like half-inch tall characters in this format. I think most people were working digitally, which would make a lot of sense, but I don't do anything digitally, so I just needed to like wrap my head around how to like best put my art into this
format, right? I thought it was great because it's
Thanks.
it's obviously meant for a phone, and it's
Mhm.
it's like the opposite of what we get in the Sunday comics, right? It's not a comic
Yeah.
strip; it's something meant
Yeah.
to be scrolled through. And I thought it
And
was
the
cool, and I
artwork.
actually checked. There were a few of these pieces from this run of yours on Comic Art Fans. George
Oh, I've
Hodge,
done
who's a
really, yeah.
well-known plug here.
I've sold 90% of this. Like,
Yeah,
people really like it. It's so specific. I think I might literally be the only one who drew it in real media. But the artwork is continuous. So like the people would often find a couple in a row. So I'm drawing on a single 11 by 17, but I would have to butt the next, the next part of the story to the bottom of that page.
right.
So somewhere there is another image where the lines that are at the bottom of this continue into the top of the next. And there's a couple of collectors who bought like two or three in a row that sort of connected together.
Oh, very, very nice. And I saw Rich Donnelly claim this one just ahead of Corey Rust.
Oh,
So
great.
thank you, Rich. I would assume I'll be delivering this one to you at OAX as well. We do have one other page from this, so let me go ahead and highlight that one. So this was a little bit more 450. It's kind of, it's like if there was a splash page in this
Yeah,
format,
exactly.
that is what this is.
Yeah, this was me like when I was fully in the mode of like I'm doing as many like vertical splash images here as I can. At some point, the writer whose name just fell out of my head, she had some like health problems, so it turned into a Marvel style book in the last like quarter of it. So I was given an outline, and then I mean, it's basically a Wile E. Coyote story of two people just tumbleweed fighting through Las Vegas. Is Carnage and Venom just like batting back and forth at each other. She would give me the broad strokes of like the visual set pieces and like how they, the chain of events that has to come together. And then I got to sort of draw from an outline, and then she went back in after and scripted. But it was really fun. And once I had that in my head, I was like, I'm just giving myself the most like glamour big shots of these characters as I can force in.
Well, it's fun. I mean, we always talk about strip art. We during the
Yeah.
CAF updates we do on Thursday, we talk about the challenges of writing a 3-page story, right? Horizontally. So now you've got something that has to work vertically, word
Yeah.
balloons, all that stuff. I mean, that's really kind of like turning everything on its head. It's just innovative and fun to think about, and like you said, you probably were one of the few people that worked traditionally. I would assume a lot of those pieces would have been done digitally, just
It's a
for
lot. I mean, it just
speed.
makes more sense to do digitally because
Yeah,
I mean, it's an infinite scroll. There's no page count that you need to hit on your phone. So
right.
if you have a bunch of dialogue or a bunch of captions or whatever, you can literally just stretch the file to like fill 10 word balloons in between something if you want to.
Right.
I didn't give them that option, but it was only like the equivalent of like 40 pages worth of storytelling. It was like in like 4 increments, I think.
Well, I that's the first time I've ever seen anything like it, and I think it's cool, and
I've never seen anyone else
want to see more.
have them either.
Let's see.
I
Now
know
the next
Declan Shelby did a bunch.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, it was like a Wolverine or an X-Men story, but I don't think he drew them in real media either. Yeah, I don't know.
Making a note just to go look. Yeah, I want to see more, but you're right. I mean, there probably just isn't that much traditional pieces from that out there. All right, so now these next 4 pieces, I don't think I should have asked in advance what they were used for, but they're kind of character design pieces. I mean, you had noted they were Marvel art department stuff.
Yeah, so the last like bunch of years, I've had this relationship with Marvel, the Marvel merch and licensing catalog, which is an entirely separate sort of office and part of the business from the publishing. But basically, if you're a third-party person who wants to make like bookcases and T-shirts and merchandise that is with Marvel characters on it, you have to license from a pre-approved catalog of images. You can't just go and draw your own drawing of Spider-Man and put it on something. You have to it has to be a Marvel quality piece of artwork for you to, and then you get to choose what you license. And so anytime there's like a new IP of something, or there's like a new franchise of something that's hot or whatever, I'll do a batch of these sort of, we call them model sheets, but it's really just, a way of like putting a bunch of sort of images of a character on one piece of paper and organizing it that way. But it's one of my favorite gigs I've ever had. It's pure, just like, I work in an entirely different style. I'm doing this all with these parallel pens. It's sort of like these like plastic calligraphy pens that I find that they're so fast and loose, and the ink goes down in a way that is very satisfying. And I sort of I've made a style specific for this gig. It's a little bit sort of like sketchbooky and a little bit sort of graffiti feeling in the like fat sort of lettering and line work and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But I get to do I get to see like when Deadpool Wolverine was in like production, they send me I got to see all of the what's Wolverine the costume going to look like, what are all the Deadpool variants and all this stuff. So I've got if you go to the panel punk, I've got dozens of pages like this. These 2 in particular, right? Maybe there's one more. I think there's a Wolverine as well, are from when the X-Men animated came out, and they just wanted to make sure there was images ready to go for merch and stuff like that when that hit. But I see this stuff pop up all the time. I'll just see T-shirts and hoodies and little poster arts, pins and whatnot. There's Wolverine. When I was at San Diego last year, they did a big drone light show over the city for the Deadpool Wolverine. That was coming out soon, or maybe it just come out. And a bunch of my art was used in those drone images. It was 300 feet tall. Versions of my.
That must have been interesting to find out.
Yeah, it's not like they tell you ahead of time. You're just the one that contributes to these catalogs of images, and it gets used how it gets used. But it's sort of given me an excuse to experiment in a different inking style, and it's a really fun job. It's artwork that goes out into the world in a different way than the publishing stuff does. In a weird way, people will probably end up seeing this a lot more than they see any of the individual comic books I do.
Yeah, no, well, these are cool. I've kind of went through all 4 of them while you were talking. There was the Cyclops, Jean Grey, Wolverine, and a Deadpool. They're all $400 and all on 11 by 17.
like I've got the whole roster of the X-Men as well. I've got
Yep.
like a set of Marvel's did like an NBA team up thing, so they had like a set of Spider-Man and the Knicks, Hulk and the Celtics, like a bunch of like sort of like logos and team and the characters in kind of like action basketball type poses. Miles Morales and the Nets. It's just a fun. It's just like a fun, like it's almost effortless. This version of drawing the characters without all of the like storytelling and like you know having to like make an actual script come to life. This is just pure play, you know.
Mm-hmm. My friend Rob wanted to know if there's a Cosmic Ghost Rider of one of these over on Panel Punk.
I wish, man. It's possible. I mean, I'm doing new stuff all the time. That one doesn't exist yet, but hopefully.
Okay. Rob, if there was a #1 Cosmic Ghost Rider collector, it would be Rob.
I think he's the one who bought all my covers, if I'm not mistaken.
Most likely. And I saw T.E. Mason, you were making an offer. We typically don't take offers during the show. There's something we could talk about after the show, but during live streams with the artists, yeah, we like to just kind of stick to the prices that are shown. And you know, if something happens to not sell and it's up on CAF and whatnot, we can talk about those things and everything afterwards. So, but we appreciate that. Thank you. T's got an amazing collection on CAF as well. And Rob has confirmed he is the gentleman that picked up those artworks, and they are framed on as well.
Beautiful.
Let's see. I think we just have a couple more pieces here. What was the next one? Oh, that's right. The Minor Threats cover, issue 3, and that comes with the finished piece here. And you had kind of a
I did like a color sketch.
Yeah. Now, I was assuming the color piece. Why would I guess I wanted to know why did you do the color piece? Were you kind of trying to? Did you do the finished color work for the cover?
No, I did. I just did the sketch as my I just worked in color for the thumbnail. I had like a handful of these. I haven't done it in a minute, but there was it was like just sort of a new headspace to because I was always drawing and then sort of throwing line art at my colorist and being like, make something out of this. And at some point I realized if I have like an image of like a color profile for this, I should at least try and put down in a rough way what I'm thinking, so that Ian Herring is my colorist on most stuff, has an idea of what I'm trying to do.
Okay.
And it's helped a lot. It's and it it helps him too, not have to guess what I'm hoping for in the outcome of stuff.
Well, it's a good collaboration.
A fun sort of bonus to the collector to have that building block sort of artwork that sort of jumped off the whole thing.
Well, many art collectors like myself are process junkies. I assume most artists are too. You like to analyze how another creator that you admire creates their work. I mean, Aaron was talking about Sienkiewicz. I'm sure he's looked at a few in his time and tried to figure out how did he get to this point and make these decisions and things. I mean, that is part of the fun, I think, for the collectors as well. We really enjoy getting to see kind of what the thought process is that goes into things. And I mean, we actually have a piece for the auction in a couple weeks that Hembeck did, and he literally did 7 prelims for the piece, and then he had a whole sheet of notes saying why he went, how did he get from A to G, and it's cool. Whoever gets that's going to get this whole historical document. So I think that's great, and this cover is beautiful, by the way.
Thanks, man. This is my life right now, this Minor Threats world. For about 3 years since starting artwork and development on this has been, this and the Marvel licensing stuff of basically 99% of my time. But it's been the best gig of my life. It's so much fun, and building characters and world building stuff from the ground up. Patton and Jordan are such competent like storytellers and writers that I can just throw stuff at them, and they'll see whatever value in something. Like I often just do designs of things, pages and pages of just character designs that I think would be fun.
Were you just going to pick something up? I wasn't sure. I saw you kind of.
I have like, where did I put them all? Where did they go? I usually.
I did see that one comment too from Alberto. He was claiming lots 20 and 28.
So this is another example of like a cover color sketch I was doing. There's all these like character sheets of just random things. These are sort of like spoilers for the upcoming next series, character design stuff, and all these notes and things just to like explain what I mean by like the details that I'm adding. Like
your camera's sliding up.
Oh, sorry.
We're missing.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm not in the most professional studio setup, but gone rogue.
You have.
Yeah. But can you still see me? But
yes.
There's like, I just fill pages with designs, just crazy stuff, and like color notes. This is some top secret stuff, but it's really the most satisfying part of the job is like contributing to the story. So like the visual design stuff I'm doing isn't just like after the fact, like trying to figure out what the script needs. It's contributing to the world building and then using it in their story and like developing, like I'll pitch like, wouldn't it be cool if there was locations that were like this and had these visual elements, and then that might trigger something and they'll be like, oh, we have this scene later on, we could use that, and then it could tie to that character. Like it's just much more of a like being in the writer's room with them, and they're so competent and have such a clear overview that they can like be flexible and like on the fly add stuff and change stuff and like use parts that they like, and it's just like much more like a proper team, you know.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I mean, I was going to ask you if you share those with the editorial and the writing, writers and everything, and clearly you must. I mean, that's how you get to be part of the team without being in the room.
Yeah, me and like especially on this, we have a great editor. Daniel Chabon is our editor on Minor Threats, but the three of us are like the IP owners, and we kind of treat ourselves like an inner circle, and we have our own like, this is what we want to do, and these are the kind of the direction of stuff, and here's the story is going to look like this, and what you know, and then we take that to Dark Horse and explain and show them the outline for things. And Daniel's like the most experienced editor I've ever seen. He's dealt with everybody, and he has a real smart touch for knowing what needs help and what doesn't, and like how, like where he's most useful and how to like really just his job is just to like make sure that it's the best version of it that we can bring out to people. Well, but it's been great. It's like the most fun job I've ever had.
Congratulations. That's great. And it's the most current thing you're working on too. So it's always good to feel strongest about what you're working on today, right?
Yeah. I'm on volume 3 right now. Here's a page that's not yet done. But we have multiple spin-offs going. I'm not even sure how many have been announced yet, but it's really like its own little universe inside the Dark Horse publishing. Much in the same way that like Black Hammer, Jeff Lemire's Black Hammer has become sort of like a little world. We have Tim Seeley did a spinoff for us called The Alternates, which is great. And characters from that are now getting used in spinoff stories. We have a book series, a series called Welcome to Twilight that starts in the spring. And one of Tim's characters, Crab Louie, who's sort of a Vertigo type character, has a story with Gail Simone is writing a story. It's just been crazy. There's like so many great art teams coming in. Mike Mignola and Matt Fraction are doing an issue of that. Bendis and Sue Lee are doing an issue.
Oh wow!
We have I don't know. There's stuff I'd love to. There's so many fun things, and
Don't get into any trouble by saying this stuff.
I can't remember which have been announced. Right now on the shelves, there's a book called The Brood by Heath Corson and Ian, whose last name I should really remember. And it's a great book. Ryan Brown and Kyle Starks did a book, Barfly, which is takes this little punk rock fly that was like a background character in my story. It was a character I just drew and put in. He wasn't scripted. There's no dialogue for him. I just wanted to populate the scene with like fun characters, and everyone loved the design of him so much that it sparked his own miniseries and spinoff. And that's just finished up in December. But there's just been like so much fun stuff coming out from it.
That's
like
awesome, man.
Multiple years of it planned already ahead of me, which is a crazy, a work situation I've never been in before.
There's something to be said about job security, right? I mean,
yeah,
you've got it in spades at the moment. And then, so I think the other two pages that we've got, and they're the last ones we have here. Well, before I even do that, I have to highlight this because I wasn't able to read it. Alberto said claim 20 and 28. And he says, Bill, please send number 20 to Kazra, because I think that was a MODOK page, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, Cyclops is for me. So I got to ask, I know,
great.
Aaron, you were a Marvel zombie, and and obviously, Scott, you've gotten to work on plenty of Marvel books. Who is the best leader ever for the X-Men?
Oh, you go ahead, Aaron. What do you think?
Oh God.
It's not an easy answer, so that means I'm going to be disappointed when it's all over.
I mean, when I was reading X-Men, Cyclops was pretty much the leader the entire time. God, who was? Oh man, I'm trying to remember who was the leader of the gold and blue teams. Cyclops was blue team, right? And
yeah,
gold team was. Who the hell was gold team? Was it Storm?
Well, Storm took over at different times. I mean, she kicked Cyclops' butt once or twice. So.
Like I was always about the wild card characters, so I never liked the leaders of X-Men ever, because I always thought they were like stiffs, like I was never a fan of Cyclops outside of like the video games. It's like, if you're gonna play the video game, you have to be Cyclops because he's like an overpowered character.
Yeah, he's a walking shotgun.
Yeah. And Wolverine was always the worst in the video games. Like I wanted to play it, but I just died instantly anytime I played Wolverine in the video games. But yeah, I liked Nightcrawler. I liked Wolverine. I liked any of the characters that were like just kind of coming through and not playing by the rules. So, and I never really analyzed them in terms of like how well they work together as a team, because it wasn't what I was interested in.
That's okay. Mine is Cyclops, but it's okay if yours aren't. That's I grew up on that the Claremont Burn run, right? That's what I was buying off the shelf. So it's hard for me not to identify with Cyclops as being the better.
My Minor Threats partner Jordan Blum is a Cyclops fanatic. That's his favorite. Everything, like, he loves Cyclops. I did like a 40th birthday present that was like him as Cyclops with his family as like mutant characters. I never really attached to Cyclops either, just because when I started reading X-Men, I think it was like Storm, Wolverine, Longshot, and it was like them in that, like when they were like trapped in Australia. It was that era of like them being on the run constantly.
Yeah.
I get it.
And I loved that. That was like Mark Silvestri's was the artist then, and Colossus was there. Colossus and Kitty Pryde, yeah. But I always thought, like when I started reading comics when I was like 10, it was the Avengers. It was Buscema's Avengers, and the Avengers always talk shit about the X-Men because they were the cops and the X-Men were like the vigilantes or whatever. So I thought like the X-Men were like assholes. You couldn't, they're not actually good. It wasn't until I became a teenager and had like some counterculture instincts that I fell in love with like Wolverine and everybody. But I think the Storm is the scariest leader of the X-Men. No one can out lead, like that's like having Thor as your leader. Like she's the most powerful. She's like the nth level. Unless Jean Grey goes nuclear, Dark Phoenix, she should be the leader of the X-Men. I don't know if I have a favorite exactly. I guess, I mean, Charles Xavier is the leader of the X-Men, is he not?
Yeah.
He's the organizer, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, when I that period, Charles Xavier wasn't involved. Like he was absent.
Yeah, that's true. He was, he had disappeared off the map. That was
I don't feel slighted, guys. That's all right.
Generation.
It's all about your era, right? At the end of the day.
I mean, as a fully formed adult, I appreciate the contribution of Cyclops now.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I understand the necessity of a character like that to exist, to keep everybody else in check. Yeah, just as a kid, he was too much of an adult for me as a kid.
Right, exactly. You want to have fun, and this guy's trying to go all by the book and everything.
Yeah.
I get it. My lamp. Well, there's like one of the classic lines from Byrne's run on the book where he's just always trying to torment, Wolverine. He's trying to goad him into being more of the animal and not playing by the rules to basically show that you need to be a team player. And that was Cyclops. And so I don't know. Maybe I guess I identified with that. And I will end it, everybody. I won't talk about it anymore. Today. But because of what you said earlier, Corey Rust, Aaron wanted to know: do you also dislike Captain America because of but you're as a Marvel zombie.
As a kid, I could care less about Captain America. Like I just did not give a shit about that character at all. But once I actually started working in comics, I had a newfound appreciation for the property, I guess more so than the character necessarily, and that's because of the creative teams. And because the creative teams on Captain America were like right up my alley in terms of aesthetic. It was all very classic illustration that was happening on Captain America during like the early late aughts. But in all honesty, I haven't read enough Captain America to have any kind of like true opinion about the history of that character and how it appeals to me personally. So, yeah.
All right. Well, see, now we've made Alberto sad too, because he's the #1 Captain America collector on.
I mean, I said for a long time, I said if I was going to do one Marvel book, it would be Captain America, and that's just simply because of the creative teams that have worked on it. I just felt like I fit that like aesthetic, and I also like that era where Cap was, because I read that stuff, and so I liked that era where he was sort of subverting expectations. Yeah,
that's cool. I really that's certainly not a question I've ever asked before, but it's cool to think that you as creators wanting to contribute to stories and characters whose creators have left an impact on the characters, and it's partially why you love them, right? I think that's pretty cool, and it's never come up in conversation before with the interviews I've done, but I get it. It totally makes sense, right? You're kind of following and then adding to creators whose work you really admire. So that's cool. So we got 2 more pieces to show, and let's see. They are both from Minor Threats. This is
Yeah.
from V2 issue 1 by Scott, of course, on 11 by 17. This is lot 33, priced at $375. And yeah, again, I hate to say I haven't read it, but it makes me want to read it when I see imagery like this throughout
Yeah,
it.
please do.
I have to now because it's so fun.
This
in
is
a-
from
in an interesting way.
this came out in the spring. This is the issue 1 of our second volume, and I'm on volume 3 now. But the trade is out, so please pick up volume 1 and 2. But this is like this kind of says everything about the sort of storytelling that Patton and Jordan are doing. Our lead character is this woman, Playtime. And she is sort of like she's like Forge, or like Rocket Raccoon. She's like a techno telekinetic whatever, so that she can build things really rapidly. She has like an instinctual understanding of how to like create technology out of things. But she has this childhood trauma of being her mom's sidekick, and her mom was the toy queen, this sort of like campy 60s era villain. And she grew up in this like kind of tragic upbringing, being treated more like an assistant than a kid. So all of her powers demonstrate themselves in like toy form. So everything she makes is like a weapon or some kind of tool or whatever. It ends up presenting itself in some childish toy manner. So she builds this like, this is a team. She's like she's the gang leader of her little squad at this point. There's a rival gang called the Holiday Squad or the Holiday Gang, and they're all holiday themed villains. So this is the guy getting his arm torn off is like a Thanksgiving pilgrim. There's a dude with like bunny ears who's like, fuck this, I don't even want to be on this team. There was like a sinister looking Santa Claus guy. There's it's a lot of fun. But this is her sort of like showing up in the middle of the night, knowing that they're about to rip off one of her scores and surprising them with this sort of like retaliation. The next page, I think we get a little bit more of it. Yeah. So this is like the Halloween sort of thug that she's gonna crush. He has like this like chain and ball that's like a metal pumpkin, and she's already thrown a Rubik's Cube, spinning Rubik's Cube device into his chest. So he's got like a hole in his chest. And then there's this like Santa Claus type who's like the leader of the team that comes up behind her. She's having visions of a character that she had fought and killed in the first volume is sort of haunting her. He was a childhood hero of hers, and she ended up having to kill him in retaliation. And so she's sort of haunted by this like Obi-Wan type like figure in her life.
Well, both pages are great. I love the big wheel in the in the first one. I had one as a kid myself, so
me too.
You should have
those are awesome.
group of rejects from like you should have a group of like rejects from like little known holidays. Like,
yeah, totally.
Like Boxing Day, man. Like
that's a great idea. Arbor Day.
Yeah, right. Arbor Day, man. The arborist.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. The arborist. Oh boy. Yeah, this is you never know where these things will lead. But man. Well, yeah. But so for one, I got to thank everybody who's picked up artwork today. Ian, Stingray.
Yeah, thanks guys.
Who else we got? Rich Donnelly got a couple pieces. Alberto, Corey. I think all of these are OAX deliveries too, so that makes it really easy. We won't be charging for shipping on any of these. I can, basically all this stuff is going to go up in my CAF gallery after the show, everybody. So any pieces that didn't sell, the easiest way to make an inquiry will be through my CAF gallery in about an hour and a half. So they'll all be up there, And anything you see that didn't sell, you let me know. Let me know if you're still interested, because a lot of people watch these shows on the rewind. So if you saw something that didn't sell, go over to my calf gallery. Very easy. After the show's over, I'll add it to the show description so people can easily get in there. Oh, Daniel wanted to see that. Oh, let me see. That was lot 18. Show that off again. That was the cover to Hack Slash and Body Bags issue 2.
And you can frame that either way. Like I drew it intentionally like a playing card. It's right side up in both directions, depending on which characters you want at the top.
I didn't even think about it like that. And because you use your own board, it doesn't even have kind of a top to it, does it?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Daniel's going to go ahead and claim that.
Oh, amazing. Thanks, Daniel.
Thank you, Daniel. I'll write that down. So Daniel, well, you'll be emailing, and I'll let everybody know this too. You're going to email bill@comicartfans.com after the show if you've claimed anything. And Daniel, if you're not going to OAX, I'll also need to get your mailing address when you do that. Easy to send that to me when you reach out. And I see Kazra was asking about lot 20, but Alberto actually claimed it for you, Kazra. So, Daniel's going to be at OAX too. Man, this is great. Is everybody in the chat going to OAX or something?
You're cleaning up, man.
Everybody's saving on shipping today. That's amazing. I'm so happy. But you don't have. That's not a qualifier for buying artwork today, though. I'm just letting everybody know now, and then who's watching later, that if you're not going to OAX, it's fine. We will ship artwork out. And again, you'll be able to find all the artwork in my calf gallery after this is over. Link will be in the description. And honestly, guys, this was a lot of fun. I mean, like I told you when we were in the green room beforehand, I'm used to just doing one artist at a time. But no, this was a good. This was intriguing. I want to do it again. I think this format worked pretty well. And interestingly, different kind of approaches to your craft. But it all kind of there's ties here together. And again, both working at with your art sales through panelpunk.com. So that would be, I would just encourage everybody, if you didn't see something here that you wanted, but you really appreciate both of these gentlemen's artwork, you should go over there after the show, and there's a lot more of their artwork there.
All the other original pages from the last issue of Hellblazer just went up, I think like yesterday or the day before yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's great. And if there's any other of the Marvel licensing stuff, I've got a lot of that Marvel, like the Deadpool Wolverine stuff, all the Deadpool variants, all of the Avengers, the Captain America guy. There's a bunch of like cool Captain America stuff. So just, I didn't want to like overload the Bill's auction.
No, we're here to try to get people back to the source site too, where your sales are. So again, that's what these are all about. Jewish Dragons claims lots 3 and 4 from you, Aaron. Thank you, Jewish Dragons. We appreciate that. Corey Rust wants to see lot number 7 as well. Let me go ahead and highlight that one. That was the Witcher cover, actually. Yeah, and I can tell you, Corey, it's spectacular in person. I know you're going to be at OAX, and if you were at all wanted to see it in person before making the purchase, I mean, I can do that. But it is as incredible as it looks here. It's
another quick fun little story about this. It's the fastest painted correction I've ever made, because when I sent in the final painting, I screwed up, and there was only supposed to be 1 boar, and then the others 2 were supposed to be wolves, and I painted them all as boars. I don't know why, it just did. And they came back and like, "This is great, but unfortunately, like you can only have 1 boar. Can you change the other ones?" And I was like, "Oh my god!" And I had to get it back to him that afternoon, so I had like 2 hours to do this. And I went in, I don't know how I did it. I have no idea how I got it done, but like I blazed through that and changed it all. Like, and you can't tell at all. Like if you look at it, you cannot see any ghost of the boars underneath. So yeah, someday if they do what do they do whenever they like examine a Rembrandt or something?
Right.
And you find the painting underneath.
Oh man! Before I show, Corey was asking me about lots 8 or 9. I'll show that in a second, Corey. But there was a question from Jewish Dragons for Aaron. He was curious regarding the lots 3 and 4, which were those Harley Quinn Valentine specials.
Oh, right.
We had pages 29 and 30, and he was curious if you had the 2 pages prior to that, 28 and 27, and I don't know if those would be up on the Panel Punk site or if that's something that you may have.
No, because like I said, the rest of those pages have sold probably years ago. Yeah.
Well, then unfortunately, we don't have those for you, Jewish Dragons.
But
But
you might look, because it's a pretty good chance that the people who bought those are on Comic Art.
Yeah, they may be. Yeah.
A lot of my early work, especially like because I had done Shadow and Green Hornet. I know a lot of that work is on Comic Art.
Comic Art fans. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see here. Oh, this was the other piece that Corey wanted to see, the Barbaric Axe.
That's awesome.
I
love the high gloss on the teeth, that like wet sort of high shine. It's great.
Yeah, that is
what is in his mouth? What's in the axe's mouth? Fingers, of course.
It's in the middle of a meal.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that is awesome. But if anybody did want to see these at OAX, I'm happy to bring pieces in just to show off. I'll have them for a few weeks, and the show is 2 weeks from today, so I can certainly show them off there for anybody who wants to see anything in person before making a purchase. We can definitely do that too. But yeah, please, everybody remember, I will put the link to my calf gallery where these can be purchased after the show in the show description. So look for that. It'll be about an hour after the show. They'll be active in there, and happy to field any questions that anybody might have. Scott, Aaron, this was great, man. I had a great time. This worked out very, very well. I hope we've raised a little bit of money for charity too. That's for the Red Cross. We'll figure out. We'll definitely do something for CAF as well.
Thanks everybody.
And I think Mickey and Sokolov Art for putting in a super chat earlier today too. We'll put 100% of that into the donation to the Red Cross. And again, this was great. I hope I get to see you guys at a show sometime soon. I mean,
I'll be at Richmond in the GalaxyCon at Richmond in March, but then I'm at the C2E2 in April, which I assume you guys.
I'll be, the next show that I'm at is Emerald City.
Okay.
I'll be there with Scott's Collectibles. So when we were in the green room, I was explaining Panel Punk represents me for all my original art sales and then anything to do with GalaxyCon. So I'm going to be doing a GalaxyCon and a Nightmare Weekend in Chicago this year. And then Scott's, I just signed with them a few weeks ago. They're going to be handling pretty much all my other convention appearances. So anything that's Fan Expo related or like overseas. So they'll be I'll be under the Scott's banner at Emerald City.
Cool. Well, guys, again, this is a lot of fun. I mean,
thanks for having me.
I'm glad we got some art into some collectors' hands, and obviously, I'll keep you guys posted on how things go after we get everything uploaded to the website. But again, thanks for taking time out on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun for me. And everybody in the chat, thank you for your purchases and hanging out, and we'll see you again soon. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
See you later.